We're live at 11:05. I'm gonna try to speak up because I guess we've been having a lot of, we can't hear very well things. And so I may try to get a mic in the future or something and do better quality, but for now, this is what you get. Well, I'm BC, this is Spirit Cars, and in case you didn't know, we build cars here. And we're working on Tweety. Been working on Tweety. Jason is doing a real good job. We had him on camera the other day, and he's not good on camera, so I said, you can go to lunch, you don't have to be here. So he's kind of a fabricator. And I was interviewing somebody today where when we move up to the new building, we got another facility, we're gonna do assembly up there, and we're gonna try to kind of focus on turnkey cars, which we don't now. We do a lot of turnkey cars, but we're gonna try to make it a legitimate part of the business and expand that and put teams together. I've never had any teams of assemblers. So with the whole Corona thing and this, people are being laid off and this and that, it's a huge opportunity for anybody that's not cowering down in fear right now, to just find some really quality employees. So I had a guy come in, we talked for quite a while, and I'm looking for an assembler. And he worked at the boat company, worked at Ranger Boats, and he actually ran a department, kind of a warranty department on trailers, and he worked in building trailers and putting wiring on trailers and so he's got a great skill set, a good work ethic, but he was daunting to look at a car and go, I'm building a car. And I guess if you look around, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to it. But here's one. This is a Spirit car. This is kind of what they look like, a Spirit car. We can assemble that. Everything, you don't have to pre-fit it before you paint it. You can take all the parts and just paint them, lay it out, here's the pieces, put it together, assemble it. Pretty much the same every time. You know, may have an option to do this or that. And then we have Tweety, or Goldie, or Dorothy, or Bonnie, or something.
Somebody wants to know, it says, a question for the uninitiated. Why is it called a tea bucket?
It's a Model T. It's just the bucket. If you took a Model T and took just the body, looked like a bucket, there's your bucket. So it's a Model T, and we call it a 23, which they just picked that year. I mean, the Model T was through a lot of years, and then it was still a 26 and 27 is the Model T, but it was a significantly different body. But pretty much at 25 and back, they just call it T bucket. And the 27, you can call it what you want. I guess you call it a T bucket too, but it's a little bit different body, a little bit bigger, a little different shape to it. So that's a T bucket. This one happened to be a Total Performance Anniversary bucket. That was their body. We put a Spirit insert into it. It's a CCR frame, a pinched frame. It's got a small block Chevy with a 350 trans. Alan's been accumulating these parts for a long time. It's got a 9-inch rear end in it. It's been sitting for a while. We got to clean it up quite a bit. We're going to put a quick change, kind of a cover on it, so it'll look like a quick change, doing a lot of different things. So this is not assembly work. This is, you got to figure it out, because stuff just don't fit. It wasn't made to fit together. On a Spirit car, our goal has been for a long time when we did the turnkeys, not so much because it was a core of our business, it would help us on our engineering when we sold the kits. So anymore, we don't have to pre-assemble one of our cars to make sure it fits, to take it apart to paint it again. If it's a 23T kit, it just, here's the parts, here's the pieces, I send it through, we paint it, put all the parts, pieces sitting there painted, put everything together and assemble it, putting it together. So looking at the deer in the headlights look in this new guy's eyes, he's got a good work ethic, I believe. He's got a good attitude, I believe. He's got good references, and got the skill set, but he's overwhelmed. And I can see that. My first T bucket didn't come till about 25 years after I wanted my first T-bucket. I looked at the plans way back in the day in high school and I was like, man, I want to build a T-bucket. But then I looked at it and I looked at what all was involved, and I was just like, man, this looks pretty complicated. And back in the day, you know, CCR had the plans and they still do, and it can be accomplished and you can do it. But there's a lot to it. We've really tried to simplify it. But my job, my role, part of what I do is to be an encourager. Help you and equip you to accomplish the task. That's part of the biggest reason for these videos, is that you can do it. I mean, you can do it. But I've got Jason, and Jason is a quality. He can look at a problem, and he can figure out a problem. So that's a big deal. So what we're doing on this one right now, kind of an update. Let's do an update. Bring it in here. We got the valve covers. Alan had them shipped in, so we painted them, and actually we painted them twice. We didn't want to buff them. They had a little bit of dust, so Glenn painted them again yesterday. It's going to get these ribs on it. That'll be cool. These will go on top of here, and we got the carburetors actually been either powder coated or painted already before we got them. And moving ahead, got this really cool, and it's probably old, a Moon Eyes shifter. So it's got an actuator that needs to go on here that is going to do the shifting. And then it's a push button. It's got a little, these are some bezels. This is the buttons here to shift it. So you put the bezel on, and we're going to put that on the bottom of the seat, I think, and you have to reach down and hit where you're going to go, and you can shift up and down, or shift up and down, whatever's the drive or whatever they are. It's got a little indicator there. It's all pretty, really neat, electronic, but it don't fit. And then it's just, we don't have just a basic oil pan. We've got a really cool aluminum oil pan on here, but it's a little bit thicker, so the lip is a little bit thicker. So the bracket that they had to go on there just didn't work right. And then the bracket here for the master cylinder is kind of in the way a little bit, and we're going to have to run this thing upside down, I believe, which won't matter, but it won't be the way that it was designed to be. So we pretty much had to do some fabricating here to make this thing work, and it's going to work. It's almost attached. And it'll take some figuring, it'll take some doing. In the front, it became obvious, we start putting it together, that we're going to have to run a electric fuel pump. There's just no room with the pinch frame to run a mechanical fuel pump. We normally run an alternator that's a low mount alternator. Let's show that, actually. So this is the front of a small block Chevy. You can kind of see what we got here. Can I look from the side even a little bit? We use a low mount alternator kit. The pulleys for the water pump and for the crank, the same. Use a short water pump. Put a fuel regulator on, because you're probably going to use an Edelbrock 600 carburetor. They're the cheapest and good looking, but you don't want to have too much fuel going to them. We use flexible hoses to go on. What you see here is pretty standard. I don't know if we have a kit for that, but we sell all them parts. We probably should advertise it as a kit. Would make it real easy. You just, all right, I got me a small block Chevy. You can, this one, you just got rib valve covers and an air cleaner, Durashine intake. Pretty basic stuff. HEI distributor. This is all figured out. Know what we need, know the parts. You can change and get different styles of things. You can get, you know, this is a aluminum water pump. You can get this is a stock water pump and paint it. These are aluminum. You can get chromed aluminum, or you can just get metal ones. Or there's some different options, but it's pretty figured out. It's the same every time. This one, not so much. Okay, the motor's in, but this has got a cross steer. A lot of people wonder the difference between cross steer and slingshot steering. This is a good example. there is no slingshot arm on here. There would be a slingshot arm coming out, and it would cross, slingshot steering would have the steering box up over there. Instead, the box is up here in front. You can kind of see it, which is absolutely in the way of where we would put our alternator, and it's pinched, so there wouldn't be room for it anyway. So we're gonna have to come up with a new place to put the alternator, and we can probably just buy a bracket that's already made to go up there. We don't need to do that. Your steering arm comes across of your the rod for the steering arm, and then this steering arm has two holes. So what you're going to do is steer the car from the right wheel, and then your drag link is going to come across and steer your left wheel. So you've got your steering box, cross steer, right wheel steers the left wheel. This one would be a spirit car. They have what we call a slingshot arm. It looks kind of like a slingshot. You took it off. The steering box mounted up on the side here. So what's going to happen here, you're going to steer the left wheel. You got your drag link going across, and now you can see on that steering arm there's only one hole. So the left wheel steers the right wheel, and it's steered with a slingshot style. That's how we do it. If you're an assembly guy, it's going to be the same. You put it together, it's going to go like this, it's going to go like that. The rod will be the right length. You probably learn how, okay, you got it so much in, you leave your rod end out, 3/8 of an inch, put your jam nut on it, everything's going to be the same. You can lay it all out, do it, done. Something like this, you're going to have to figure out, okay, now we got a bracket that's going to have to go here, we got a thing that goes here, we got something that goes there. How are we going to attach the radiator? Is there going to be a room for the fan that goes behind that? Just a lot of different issues. So there's a little bit of difference between fabricating and assembling. Engineering should all be done already on the assembling side. If you're fabricating, well, it's kind of, you have to figure it out, make it work. There's no one right way, but there is wrong ways. I remember quite a long time ago, I was sitting at a table with, I happened to be up in Nebraska, in Lincoln, and it was just Speedy Bill Smith and I, and he did a lot to help this industry move ahead. So we're talking, and he just, I'm getting what is this sign?
Somebody wants to know where and how to weld motor mounts and transmission mounts. And then somebody wants to see the Z-frame on the yellow car, the front frame.
The Z-frame. Oh, why is it Z'd? Okay, so it's got a Z-frame. What that's doing, that's giving you a little extra. This is a spring over. So since it's a spring over, spring's on top of the axle. That means that the whole spring is higher. So if this car, I didn't build this frame, but if they'd had this frame straight going across here, this whole car would be sitting pretty high. This is a spring behind. You can see the spring, instead of being on top of the axle, is behind the axle. So because the spring is behind the axle, look how low that is in relationship to where the axle is. We'll go over here again. Look at how high the spring is in relation to where the axle is. So to get that extra, get it down to the ground, that's why it's Z'd there. And it looks pretty cool. Motor mounts, what are you doing? I mean, what do you got to do? We wound up having to move. Let's make a quick walk. This will be a good Kendall update. And this is fabricating. We put a serpentine belt system on it. Really cool, but we lost about 1.5 inches, 2 inches that we didn't want to lose. So when we put it all back together, going to put the AC on, we wound up with an issue where we couldn't get the lines around it. It was just so tight. I would have had to run a double fan that I didn't get as, I mean, I could have got pretty much the minimum CFM that I would have wanted. Could have made it work. thought about it, and then stood back and went, no. I don't care, we're this far into it, we're gonna move the motor back. Since this frame is already powder coated, we did not want to have to change the motor mounts here. So when you got motor mounts, you got one motor mount on the frame and one bolted onto the motor. And then they go together with a bolt that will basically hold the two together. And there's a couple different kind of motor mounts. You can got one that's a solid mount and one that's got a rubber between it. So this would be a bolt that holds it together. So since we didn't want to do it there, we had to move the whole motor back. I think we moved it back about 1.5 inches. Didn't want to change these motor mounts, which meant there was no such thing as a motor mount that was going to work. So we had to fabricate some motor mounts. And this would be up this side. No, this would be, yeah, this one. Okay, so this motor mount, we've got it, we're going to clean it up some. We put a little hole there because potentially some water could get in here and it's going to sit like that, and we didn't want the water to sit there, so if water gets in there, it'll go through. We're going to clean these up real nice, and we'll paint them, I think we'll paint them blue. Plenty of surface space for the weld, strong. So these, we just created these motor mounts to fit in there. Let me move my motor back, and you can kind of see it offset, but we can still bolt it in. And we offset it where the other one, these holes would have been over here, 1.5 inches. Now we moved them back. A little inconvenient, but they look good, they look cool. They're solid mount, motor mounts, which is nothing wrong with that at all. It's a hot rod car, and it'll just feel like a little bit more of a hot rod car. So you'll feel a bit of vibration in the motor, but not significant. So, kind of updating on 2 cars. I was going to say, we didn't run into problems, but we're putting the rear end together. We wanted to fit this Moon Eyes because we're going to have to figure out where to place the buttons in the car, so we want to get that ahead. Bolting on valve covers and bolting on carburetors, and this has got a really neat magneto. It's not. It's a HEI. You'll just have to wait and see it next time when it's in. We'll show that next time. But overall, a little bit difference between assembling and fabricating. If it doesn't work, doesn't mean it won't work. It just means you might have to think about it a little bit, change up a little bit. Much better if you can think 3 or 4 or 5, 6 steps ahead. So if you don't, you might fix one problem and create another problem in the future. So try to think the whole process through. In a lot of ways, I mean, you're designing a car, which, General Motors might take 3 years to come up with a new idea to bring to market, where around here I'll give somebody about 3 hours and let's have it figured out and let's get going. Come on. So that's where we're at on Tweety. It's coming together, cleaning it up. It's started with a big pile of parts, not even knowing what they are. Now it's kind of got down to the pile where we can see what's here and moving ahead. So just like the new guy I talked to, he's going to come and he's going to job shadow. He's going to come next week and job shadow, so he can feel more comfortable that he can get the job done. I have pretty much confidence in him, but it's got to be a good match both ways. I'm just going to say, get her done. You can get it. I mean, don't get overwhelmed. It's one small piece at a time. As long as you're taking it one small piece at a time, you got to look ahead, look at what other people have done, go to somebody that's been doing it before so they know you can do it. So it's trigger time. We got to do trigger time real quick. We're in interesting times. We haven't killed the prophets of Baal yet, but it's about time. We've sacrificed enough unborn children to them. But we're not even going to go there. So you know the Elijah story, Jezebel, and Elijah, and the fire coming down and all that, and it's like, okay, great victory. Except for, Elijah tells Ahab tells Jezebel what Elijah did, and Jezebel gets all bent out of shape, and she's like wanting to kill him. So here we are, Elijah, who just called the fire down, heads to the hills, takes off. So he goes in the wilderness, sits down, he's there. And this struck me as interesting. So and there he came to a cave and lodged there, and behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And he said, "I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thy altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And only I am left, and they seek my life to take it away." So God said, "And go forth, and stand upon the mount before the Lord, and behold." So he basically is like, just go out here. Just go out here. And the Lord said, "Go forth, and stand upon the mount before the Lord." And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great strong wind rent the mountains, and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire a still small voice. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle, and went out and stood in the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice to him that said, the same thing. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And Elijah again goes, "I've been very jealous for the Lord of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thy altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword, and only I am left, and they seek my life to take it away." And basically the Lord said, yeah, okay, all right, fine. Now go do this. Go anoint this one to be king. Go anoint this one to be king. We're going to take care of that. And you're not the only one, by the way. There's 3,000 other prophets still. They've been hiding in caves or wherever. They're still around. Sometimes we get so focused on our own little things, and we're in a unique position here. It's amazing to me. And honestly, I wash my hands a lot more than I did before. There are some issues that have been brought up that are just basic great hygiene that we should be following. But this whole corona thing has had limited effect. If anything, we've had a positive effect. I've got the guy that I was talking to be an assembler, great work ethic, a great employee that I wouldn't have had a chance to get, other than the fact the company he's been working for 20 years laid him off. Their loss, my gain. I don't know where I was going with that, but so we haven't had, in my world, I've been busy, been doing and going. Okay, we didn't go to the restaurant, but I'm helping build a restaurant right now, so it'll be ready to go when it can open. And but if you've been hunkered down and all by yourself, and just like, and your mind is just like, we're doomed. No, we're not doomed. Our God controls the wind, controls the weather, controls what's going on, is in control of everything. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Oh, but poor me, oh. Bam, 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 bam! What are you doing here? You hear me? Now go do what you're supposed to do. So that's it for Trigger Time today. And we're going to build some hot rod cars, and tomorrow we'll see you again. And hopefully the sound was better, and I'll work on getting me a different mic. So